Well, thank you to the JP Progressives for asking me to come and have this opportunity to see people who I've met several times and some people who I'm seeing here for the first time. Just in a way of quick introduction to give you my background, because I'm sure we'll cover a lot of things in the questions. My name is Jim Hennigan. I actually grew up in this community that we're in right now, Jamaica Plain. I'm very proud of that. Wherever I go, wherever I travel, people say, "Where are you from?" And I always tell them I'm from Jamaica Plain. I now live in West Roxbury. As everybody knows here, this district is made up 95% of Jamaica Plain, West Roxbury, two communities that I love very much. I've spent the first half of my life here in 4 different neighborhoods of Jamaica Plain, and I've now, for my past 26 years, I've brought my family up, lived with my wife in West Roxbury. I have 4 children. Their ages 15, 13, 11, and 9. And just to tell you quickly, that is why I run for the City Council. Because of the communities that I love and that I have gotten to know. I know every single one of the neighborhoods, not only here in Jamaica Plain, but in West Roxbury, and I have been very active. But I run for my family, for your family. And for your family, sometimes it's your close-knit community, your neighborhood, the people who live with you in an apartment building. But what happens over the next 2, 4, 10 years is very critical for our communities, for our neighborhoods, and for the city. So I look forward to answering any of your questions, and I look forward to, over the next 3 weeks prior to the preliminary election, I can assure you I will be in Jamaica Plain quite a bit. I've been over here over the past several weeks. So at any time you see me walking down the street, come up, ask me any question, and I'll be ready for you. So here we go. I'm ready to go.
So, our first question is actually about your response on the affordable housing question. We're hoping that maybe we can pin you down a little bit about your support, whether you would support the Forest Hills Initiative goal of having 50% affordable housing on the publicly owned land and 30% on the privately owned land.
Right. Because I made it a little bit general because I didn't see the actual plan and proposal, which sometimes when you have a question and I didn't want to make it up. The concept I love. I love the idea of having affordable housing, and I think every single developer, every single builder should have this part, because number one, it would be popular with the community, especially when it's with public housing. I could see myself supporting that. I definitely think that 50%, 40%, somewhere in there should be put aside for affordable housing. When it came to private housing, a lot of this would depend on the outlook of how big the project was, how small the project is. You know, someone's building just a small 2 or 3 unit, 4 unit. Because I hadn't seen the actual proposal, I didn't know about on that. What was the number again for the private?
It's private
30%. I think the developers should be looking as a goal to be at 20, 25, 30% for privately held places. So with that, I do support that in concept.
So one of the bigger issues last year in the city council mayor races was the role of the BRA in the city of Boston. So, and whether there are reforms that are needed with the BRA. Do you think BRA currently does a good job, and specifically with regards to housing development projects in District 6?
Right. I think we really need to take a close look. I'm not a person who says we need to get rid of the BRA. I don't feel that way. But I think it has grown beyond what its initial purpose was. I think that it should be definitely held under review by the City Council to try to get it back to being something that's going to benefit the city. Very often I've had dealings with the BRA in my neighborhoods. I think they have too much power. I think there's too much control there. I feel that there should be some type of revision with the BRA.
Anything specific that you want to mention?
Well, the biggest thing is that they shouldn't hold all the power in the, I think it should be back more in the neighborhoods of the neighborhood voice. We have neighborhood councils, but I don't think that the recommendations of the neighborhood councils hold much weight in with the BRA. I think we should have more of this should be done through the neighborhood areas that are going to be most impacted by the developments that are coming up. I mean, we have, the wonderful thing about Boston is that we have wonderful neighborhoods throughout this city. And personally, 17 years ago, the BRA approved the development in a small little tucked away area called Hancock Woods in West Roxbury. I stood with the neighbors and I battled the BRA on that. And we won. It took a long time, but they were going to have, in the neighborhoods, they were going to put in a big housing development. And I'm a big believer in the green space, because in Jamaica Plain in West Roxbury, we have beautiful green space areas, and I want to protect it. And I don't want the BRA putting through projects that are going to affect that. So I was in opposition to that 17 years ago.
So, talking a little bit about charter reform, you said you thought the city charter should be updated to reflect changing times. We're wondering if you can be a little more specific about areas that you would like to prioritize for reform in the charter.
I'm not a big believer in let's throw the charter out and just revamp the whole thing. Such as when they changed, the last time, give you an example, when they changed the city council from 9 city councilors at large to district city councilors and 4 at large, the charter had to be changed. It had to be changed to reflect that this was going to be the new system of government in the city. That was a specific issue. I think that we should have, the city council should have a review of the charter. It should evolve as times change. You can't have a charter, if it was in the 1940s it was a good idea. Well, we're far removed from the 1940s. We're dealing with different issues, we're dealing with different technologies, we're dealing with a whole different environment than to keep the charter the same as it was then. So I think there needs to be a complete review of the charter, and then pick out things specifically one at a time that we would look to change.
Well, one of the specific proposals that has been floated is the idea that the city council might want to have more power around the budget. And I'm wondering if you, well, actually just more power in general. There's more power between, we currently have sort of a mayor-strong city. Do you think that the city council should have more power?
Absolutely, absolutely. Not only with the budget, but in their voice of being able to take issues and because as everybody knows, you can voice your opinion on something, but ultimately the mayor is going to decide what goes through, and the city council is left only to be able to have an influence when it comes to budget time. Okay, now the budget is very important, and it's a good time to have influence without question, but I think that we should have a city council that does have more power, like most cities do, like most cities do.
So we'll talk about education for a minute. So in your school transportation question, you expressed concern for the cost of the empty seats on buses and redirecting that money to classrooms.
Absolutely.
And most recently, you probably saw there was a study that ranked Boston schools as the fourth most segregated school system in the country, specifically isolating Black and Latino students in low-performing schools. How do you deal with that issue of segregation in our schools while also addressing the amount of money we spend on school transportation?
Well, the thing, and I've spoken with people in Jamaica Plain and West Roxbury, and everybody has been basically everybody's on the same page here, because it just seems to me that a van to transport 4, 5, 6, 7 people in large buses rather than in vans. I'm not saying we have to get rid of all the buses, but it's not making a lot of sense. These are assets that can be sold. These are owned by the city from what I understand, or if they are leased, you can just go with a different program. So when it comes to transportation, I think the money is well spent when you target an underperforming school, no matter what neighborhood that it is in, and you say, we are going to take our resources to put it toward the pupils, toward the students, toward the administration of that school, to make sure that it's just as good as any other school in any part of the city. Everybody in this city, no matter what corner, what neighborhood you are in, you're entitled to absolutely the best education. And if we're wasting money, and taking the idea of the school bus is only one thing. I'm all for taking somebody from one corner of the city and bringing them to the best school in the city. I'm just saying that it seems to me that buses use up a lot of gas. They're very expensive vehicles. They could be sold to other systems, and we could use a more efficient, environmentally friendly way if we're transporting our children to different areas of the city, whether you're transporting them a half mile or 3 miles. We shouldn't be doing it in energy inefficient buses.
And do you want to talk about any other proposals about how we deal with that segregation issue outside of transportation? Other proposals that you want to talk about?
Right. I feel that over the past 30 years, it's been very unfortunate because the schools, there's no question that it's unbalanced now. It's totally unbalanced, and this isn't something that happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 30. This actually happened 30, 35 years ago was the beginning. And our neighborhoods are becoming more and more balanced. I firmly believe that you go throughout the city, we have balanced neighborhoods. In probably 75–80% of our city. So therefore, we should be able to give the best schools to everybody within a reasonable amount of distance that we can transport them around, so we make sure that we have racially balanced schools. I love that concept. That's the whole idea of this in the first place. I love diversity. I love diversity, and that's why I love Jamaica Plain, where I grew up, because we always had the greatest mix of people, and we were from all different cultures, all different colors, all different religions. Some were rich, some were poor. It's, you know, I grew up with it, and I love it. And I see it where I live now also. I see it transitioning to that. So and it's great. I love it. So that's what I want for our classrooms: diversification and a great mix of pupils.
So on the firefighter arbitration question, if you remember the question, we asked about the original 19.5%, whether you felt the city council was obligated to support, as a city council, do you feel the city council is obligated to support the original decision of the arbitrator? And your answer.
The audience can hear you, by the way.
Can you hear me all right, guys? Okay. I'll try to talk to everyone.
Can you hear me? Okay, I just want to make sure.
So you wrote in your answer that you felt obligated to support the firefighter arbitration, but would have recommended reducing the terms of the settlement. Can you talk a little bit about how you do both?
Right. The system was a system, and I believe strongly in that. First of all, I believe strongly in collective bargaining, the process. I feel that this was drawn out over years and years and never should have happened, but when two sides go into binding arbitration, and I mean, it's very simple. Both sides say, we're going to present our cases and we are going to agree to abide by what the settlement is. If you take away and you say at the end, you say, well, that's fine, but we're really not going to do it, then you've really weakened the cause of collective bargaining and binding arbitration. So my answer is, if it was binding arbitration, I would have supported it. I also would have made a strong recommendation, as was done and done successfully, that the firefighters consider coming back with some type of negotiation, which they did, and they did, and it was done the right thing. But I feel strongly, and I've said this to many, many people, and people feel very strongly about this when it happened, is that binding arbitration has to be what it is. Okay, you can't all of a sudden change the rules after you get partway through. I think that the firefighters were, and I have strong support for the firefighters. There are people there, they are the people within our neighborhoods, they are the people coaching our kids in athletics. They're a key part of our community. They live right here in the city with us. They're great people, and I'm very proud to support them. But they're also reasonable people, and they knew that. They knew they had to be reasonable, and they came back. They came back, and they came back with a good settlement.
But in the end, if you had to support the 19.5%, you would have felt that.
I would have, yeah, I would have supported the binding arbitration. Yes, I would. Yes, absolutely.
Can't hear it.
Sorry, I'll keep working on it.
Yeah.
On the answer on race and diversity, maybe you could give some examples of the types of school and community programs that you think would help diversify workforces?
Right, no, I know. I feel that we need to have training programs. And I really feel that in our schools, what's going to do, you know, when you have a workforce and you want to make sure that everybody's included, we have to make sure, of course, we have the education process, and if that's the way someone's going to go, you're going to help them get through college. But if someone's not going through college, we need to have training programs to make sure that somebody is well-trained and that they have just as much talent so that they can go into the workforce. I think that our organized labor unions would help with this. I feel that our community leaders would help with this. I think that we need to have programs that will make sure you can't have somebody starting off and wanting to get an equal job, but they don't have the ability to do the job. If somebody is not going to pursue college or only make it partially through high school, we have to make sure there's a safety net there to help them get training so they can get good and equal jobs, and that's how I think we're going to diversify the workforce.